Continue on and do a few more of these manipulations. So this one here, we want to make Q the subject of the formula, and this happens a lot in these. If you look, there's a Q here and there's a Q here. So they're asking you to isolate Q, but there's two of them. Okay, so when that happens, when there is two of what you are asked to isolate, you have to put them together on the same side. Okay, so if I just put the line in here on my equals, it's a bit off, but it's grand. So this 3pq, which contains the q, is on the left hand side, but obviously this one's over here. So I want to take this one and I want to move it. So we move it using the opposite operation, which is a minus 2qr. And if I minus 2qr here, I have to minus 2qr over here to balance. Okay, that will take that out. These are not the same family. We have a pq and a qr, so they can't be added. So all we can do is write them. So 3pq minus 2qr is now on the left hand side. And on the right hand side, all we have is 5r s. Okay, so now I've done what I said I was going to do over here. When we have two of what we've been asked for, you put them together on the same side. I've done that now. Okay, the next thing you need to do is take the subject out as a highest common factor. Okay, so we gathered these because of the Q's. So there's a Q and there's a Q. So I take the Q out as a highest common factor. Okay, so we've done loads of highest common factors. I divide by the Q, divide by the Q. Okay, so this will cancel this, and I'm just left with 3p. This Q is positive, so the signs are different, so I'll have minus, and this Q takes out this Q, so I'm left with just 2r. And this hasn't changed. Okay, and brackets mean multiply, so this bracket is being multiplied by Q, and I want the Q isolated, so I have to do the opposite of multiply, which is to divide by 3p minus 2r, and I'll divide here by the same thing to balance it, 3p minus 2r. Just move this down a bit. Okay, so they'll cancel, leaving me with the Q isolated, which is what I wanted, and then I just have this 5r over 3p minus 2r. Okay, so I was asked to make Q the subject. This didn't happen in the ones we did on Monday. We had two of them. So when that happens, you make sure you put the two of them on the same side. Okay, so I did that by moving the plus 2qr using a minus 2qr, and I balanced it. These are not in the same family, so they can't be added. So all I did is subtracted. I just wrote them down. So 3pq minus 2qr, and all that was left over here was 5rs. You take step 2 of this process is to take the subject, which in this case is q, out as a highest common factor. So I took the q out. You always divide by your highest common factor, so I did that, and I was left with 3p minus 2r. These brackets indicate that the q is being multiplied by the bracket. I want the q isolated, which means I want the bracket to go away. If it's being multiplied, to get it to go away, I do the opposite, which is to divide. So I divide by the 3p minus the 2r, and I do it over here to balance. These cancel, isolating the q, and then you're just left with this on the right. Okay, and then I have another one here just to show you what to do when you have a power. Okay, so write C in terms of A and B, so that means we have to isolate C. Here's C here. Okay, so I have A equals BC squared, and I am trying to isolate C. BC written like that means they're being multiplied, and I want that B gone. So to get rid of that multiply by b, I'm going to divide by b. If I divide by b on the right hand side of the equals, I have to divide by b over here. So these cancel, leaving me with c squared. And over here I have a over b, which I can't do anything with. Now, I have the c isolated, but the problem is it's not c, it's c squared. I need to get rid of the squared. Now, I don't know if you remember this, we did do this, but to get rid of a square, exactly like everywhere else in algebra, you use the inverse operation. And the inverse operation of a square is a square root. Okay, so I'm going to take a square root here, and the square root and the square will cancel each other out, just like a plus and a minus does, or a multiply and a divide. They're inverse operations, they cancel each other. And just like with them, you must balance. So if I take a square root here, I have to take a square root over here. So now the c is isolated, and over here I have the square root of a over b. Okay, and then the last one, we're trying to get a as the subject in terms of the rest. So write a, so a is in here. Okay, so this is the opposite of what we just did in here. Okay, you can't really, anything under a square root is trapped. Can't do anything. So if you see one of these with a square root, you need to get rid of the square root. Okay, you should already know the answer to this. So to get rid of the square root, I use the inverse operation. And the inverse operation of a square root is, yeah, we just talked about it, square. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this, I'm just going to write it out again because it's too small. So u squared plus 2as equals v. So what I'm going to do is to get rid of this square root, I'm going to square it. And then the square and the square root cancel. But if I square on the left hand side, I have to square on the right hand side. Okay, so that leaves me now with u squared plus 2as has now been released from the square root. And over here I have v squared. Okay, remember I'm trying to get a. So I'm going to start by removing the u squared. We'll acknowledge that it's a plus u squared. So to get rid of it, we use a minus u squared. If I minus u squared on the left hand side, so I minus u squared over here, I have to minus u squared over here. These cancel. So now I've got 2as. You can write the plus if you want, but it's now a leading plus, so you don't need to. And here I have v squared minus u squared. Again, they're not in the same family, so they can't be added. Okay, so still trying to get that a. So that a, I don't know if we've done this yet, is being multiplied by the 2 and it's being multiplied by the s. So if I want to get rid of both, and you can do them one at a time, but I can do them together, I'll have to divide by the 2 and divide by the s. Okay, dividing by the 2 will remove the 2, and dividing by the s will remove the s. Yeah? But if I divide by 2s here, I have to divide by 2s over here. So then a is v squared minus u squared over 2s. Okay, so that actually is manipulation of formula finished. So the ones we did on Monday were, now none of these are straightforward, but they were straightforward in that they didn't have any of these little kind of tricky bits in them. These are kind of classics where they put these in to try and trick you. Okay, so the first one is they ask you for something, but there's 2 of that something. And I've shown you how to deal with it. Okay, and then the other thing is powers. Okay, so sometimes they give you the power and you have to get rid of it, which means you use, a square root. Or sometimes they give you the square root and you have to use a power to get rid of it. So these 2 are linked. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so again, please take down the notes. Please try and get the concept. I mean, some of you are probably thinking this is so easy but it's just one of those things that some people find so hard. So that's it. I'm not going to give you any homework. Just take down the notes for this and make sure that you understand it. I have penciled in a class for you lot here, second year higher level maths, which is what's that, 1 o'clock on Thursday. So if you have any questions ahead of the exam next week, jump on to that class. Like I said, I think I said it in the email, be ready to go. Don't just come on and say, oh, well, I'll see what the crack is on that thing. As in, like, literally, if you have questions, make sure you have a list and you're ready to go. Because, I mean, I'm sure everybody won't get on, but if everybody does, there's a lot of you in that class. There'll be a lot of questions to get through. But anyway, look, all we can do is our best. Okay? Yeah, so that's it for class content. And so it's up to chapter 9. Your summer exam is pretty much all algebra. And I suppose the challenging bit is it's all algebra that I've taught you through distance learning, which for yourselves is tough. So yeah, we'll have that class, and pop on if you have any questions, and I'll chat to you then. If not, good luck in the exam next week and have a great summer.